Hello, welcome to the Parenting Program Show. I am your host, Jeremy, the Kung Fu Guy. I am a force of nature married to another force of nature. Her name is Autumn, and we have two amazing, explosive balls of energy called kids. I am a speaker, teacher, author, catalyst, and Kung Fu master, here to help you empower your kids to speak up and own their voice. We're going to unlock and remove the chains of childhood that seem to hold us from our destiny with the tools to have inner strength, confidence to speak up, be heard, and be understood. Let's go play. Game on, yo. Hey, Parenting Nation, and welcome to the Parenting Program podcast show thingy. And I am Jeremy, your host, and I'm really excited to be here today. Today, we're going to talk about something super important. You're going to want to make sure you listen for the full block of time, about 20-25 minutes. And speaking of which, timer. Got to turn on my timer so I know when to stop talking. Right, you guys have tools that you use to hold yourself accountable to things? Because, yeah, I have no problem talking. My nickname as a kid was actually a security password, so I can't tell you. But my family knows, and that's all that matters. So today we're going to talk about, of course, always the theme, we're empowering your kids to speak up and own their voice and to create their own emotional safety and helping you to have the tools to do that as well. Today we're going to talk specifically about feeding the behavior that you want to have grow in your kids and maybe even yourself, right? Talking about feeding the behavior. We're going to have a couple stories. Love to share stories. Today's a story time. And then I'm going to have a couple tips that come out of that story, those two stories. So without further ado, let's just get straight to it. I hate when the hosts just kind of go and pontificate and whatever, and just get to the meat, y'alls. So here's the story. And this is a story about a young man, 4 years old. One of my early students learned a lot. Well, of course, we're going to call him Johnny, little Johnny. He's a great young man, helped me discover some really important things. And one of the most interesting things was he would get frustrated because 4-year-olds, they get frustrated. And he would get upset with me. And he would turn his body away a little bit, and he would cross his arms. He'd put that little pouty face on and be like, and his eyebrows would drop, and he would be like, I don't even know what to say to you anymore. And the first time he did that, it literally took everything in me not to start laughing at him. And not because I was laughing at him, but just like, wow, that's a lot of words for a 4-year-old. Dude, that was incredible. So he was a miracle baby for his mom and his dad. So that put them a little bit older. And of course, he can do no harm. He can do no wrong. But as I watched him and I watched some of his interactions with his parents, I started to realize that the way he did certain things kind of showcased to me some things that were going on at home. And I don't even know what to say to you anymore. That's like a 10, 11 word phrase. That's a lot of syllables for a 4-year-old brain and a 4-year-old mouth. He's getting that from somewhere. And so I started to notice and key in on this, right? And I started looking at some of my other students and how they interacted and where is this coming from? Because that is a little bit beyond where they're at developmentally. That's really interesting. And so that phrase he's modeling what he is seeing happening at home. He's copying the language patterns, the way that mom and dad argue. He's just modeling that as a template. And then he's using that to communicate his emotion, or to communicate his frustration, his disagreement, and whatever the case. And so, that's really, really powerful because what we do, how we do it, that communicates to our kids so much, especially before our kids are verbal. When they're nonverbal, they can't use their words to communicate. They have to watch our behavior, and that's what they start to model. And when they begin to model the behavior, a lot of times it's not stuff we're proud of or happy about with ourselves. So then what do? Well, we go to suppress that energy and be like, no, don't be like that. And the kid goes, hey, wait, I'm getting attention. I'm getting energy. And most of us, we tend to put more energy into the negative stuff than we do the positive. So when they're making a mistake, they're playing with the knives, they're trying to climb on the counter, and we freak out. They're going, attention, right? True story. When I was 4 and we lived in Turkey, my mom came into the kitchen one day, and we had like a little housemaid that was working with us because it was super cheap back then. It was the 70s. And I was naked on the counter with a knife dancing. And my mom came in and took the knife away and smacked me on the bottom, and I started crying. And the housemaid was like, but madame, he is only a child. And my mom was like, yeah, and he won't be one much longer if you let him play with knives. Right. So, different cultures have different values and different reinforcement, different ways of doing things. And so that behavior, what we put energy into, now, what if, I'm doing a great job listening and being helpful and I get well, that's good. That's what I expect. If that's the energy I get back, but I'm on the counter with a knife, I get so much more energy. Where do you think I'm going to go? Where do you think your kids are going to go? Where do you think you're going to go? You're going to go to that place where you get that huge amount of energy. So we're constantly conditioning each other. We're reinforcing, we're rewarding. And people go, wait, getting yelled at's not a reward. It is when I need energy first. And I don't care about happy or sad, warm, big, happy, small, sad, cold. I don't care about that. I just need my needs met. And I got to get 10,000 units of energy. And if I can't motivate it in positive ways, I'll manipulate it in negative ways. And it's not just me. It's all of us, right? So that's really this idea. This first step is like, how are we conditioning each other? How are we rewarding each other? Now, in that particular story with little Johnny, that was not such a great thing. He is communicating his frustration. That's great. But I don't know that mom and dad want that to be the model that he's carrying forward in life, that he just kind of shuts down. I don't know what to say to you anymore, and he withdraws. Maybe we could find a better language pattern than that. Now, on the other side, talk about feeding the behavioral grow. Talk about Autumn and talk about Evie, because they are amazing young ladies. And Autumn had a previous relationship. That's where Jamie came from before she met me. And in that relationship, she had to be in her masculine a lot. She had to kind of have her walls up, be a little bit defensive. And at the time, she was working a lot for her family business and very go-getter, make things happen, get things done. And she was in college and she was raising a kid, and there was a million things. And so she was very much living in her masculine and allowed her to get a lot of stuff done. And in our relationship, she's been able to step more and more into her feminine. And one of the challenges of being in her feminine is that her emotions sometimes get ahead of us. And guys, specifically dads, those of you that don't know, when a woman gets pregnant, sometimes her hormonal system can actually be reset. Her hormonal system will shift, and how she relates to her emotions can be drastically different. And Evie kind of helped mom to reset her emotional center a little bit. And so Autumn gets a little bit emotional sometimes, and she gets frustrated and she gets into overwhelm in ways that she used to not when she was younger and before she had Evie. And so sometimes once she realizes she's kind of in a spiral, she starts to judge herself, which then compounds the problem. And so if I'm sitting there going, but babe, this isn't who you are, this isn't how you used to be, I'm now adding fuel to the fire. So one of the first things we do in our household is when someone's upset, okay, take a deep breath, breathe with me. And first step is we're going to shift from our fight or flight mode into our relaxation mode, our calm mode, right? So you have two nervous systems. You have your sympathetic and your parasympathetic, and one deals with fight or flight. One deals actually with digestion and sleep. So taking a deep breath pulls us back in. It calms us down. Now, what's cool about this is Evie, she's now 5, but she's been watching this her whole life. And so when mom will get upset, when I'll get upset, when her brother gets upset, she comes over and she'll put a hand on you or on the person. She'll put a hand and say, okay, take a deep breath. And then she'll go as big as she can. And she'll start to interrupt the pattern of whatever's going on. So now as we roll forward, this is a young lady who is starting to study how to do interventions without even realizing it, without giving her all the neurostrategy and neurolinguistic programming and hypnotherapy, without giving her all the theory. She just witnesses me do it, my wife do it back to me, both of us do it on the kids. She's doing it back to us. And Jamie's able to do it too on his sister and on us. So it's really cool to see that, when the emotions start to take over, all right, let's get centered. And also in the language pattern, it's not you need to take a deep breath. It's I know you're upset. Let's take a deep breath together, right? Because when I model it with you, when I'm in the trenches with you, you don't feel so alone. And it gets easier to get your emotions back under control. And that's what we're looking for, right? It's just, can I hit the easy button? And the answer is, yeah, actually you can. You can hit the easy button. So, this idea of modeling the behavior, when I swear, I will tell you honestly, my favorite swear word is actually monkey. And you think, well, wait, that's not a real swear word. Well, it is to me. And when I get mad, I'll yell monkey. And every now and then, I'll yell mother, father. And so Evie's 4 years old, and she's in preschool, and she gets frustrated, and she says, mother, father. And the teachers kind of stop for a second and look at each other, and they start laughing because they had never heard that before. But it's great. So I offer that to you guys. You get upset, you get frustrated, you mother, father. Which is great because I'm talking to my wife. She is the mother and I'm the father, so it works out perfectly. She's one of those two, right? So it's a great way to kind of release that emotion, but tie it to a silly word that pulls you out of that emotion too, so you don't live there. It's okay to be angry, but we don't want to live there for a really long time. That's not helpful for you or anyone else. So this idea, we can start to influence the behavior. We can start to pay attention. We can grow the behavior we want in our kids by what we model, right? So we want to make sure we're feeding the behavior. So you need to start paying attention. Where am I putting my energy? What do my kids do that gets the highest quantity of energy out of me? Notice that first. Good or bad, positive, negative, that's second. So it's quantity, then quality, positive or negative. So that's where we want to start paying attention. So this first step now, if you're going to want to start influencing and start modeling and start growing your kids' behavior, I have a couple of tips for you. And they're going to be 5. So we want to make sure, before I get to the 5 parts, I know what you're thinking. It might be, well, that's not that easy. Well, it doesn't work with my kid that way. Well, my kid doesn't respond like that. And you might be right. You might be. But the truth is, your kids want to score points with you. Even teenagers who have their walls up and they have their defensiveness and all the rest, they want acknowledgement. They want to know they exist. They're doing something right. They're starving for that attention or that validation. So when you start to give your kids reinforcement on the behaviors you want, and you either interrupt or redirect the behaviors you don't want, your kids start to come around, and it's faster than you could possibly imagine. But the challenge is you've got to be in this equation too, right? You've got to have a couple things in place first, because you can't lead people a place you're not. So if you're emotionally unstable and you're frazzled and, well, no one ever gave me this validation, well, then wouldn't it be a great time to give it to your kids? Wouldn't it be a great time to give them acknowledgement? And then you can start to acknowledge yourself and say, you know what? I am choosing a different standard. I was raised with dysfunction. I'm going to give my kids something better. I'm going to give them a higher standard. That's okay. We can't go back and rewrite the past, but we can change the meanings. You got to stop rereading the old chapters. If things weren't so great for you as a kid, a teenager, a young adult, if they weren't so great, stop telling that story. Find the more powerful meaning. Find the deeper wisdom. Tell that story. And then every time you tell it, you remind yourself of the progress you've made, the growth you've had. Isn't that something you would want for your kids to have? And if you're modeling it, if you're living it, isn't that the most powerful way to get it across? So I have 5 tips for you, okay? Now, number 1, when we talk about feeding the behavior, I already gave you the first tip. It is breathe. When you feel that tightness in your chest, that tightness in the pit of your stomach, you feel the tension in your shoulders, you feel yourself digging in, you feel that fight or flight kicking in, stop. Take a deep breath. Shoulders up, shoulders back, shoulders down. Take a deep breath. Right? The old adage of take 10 deep breaths before you say anything, it's useful. People who smoke, what happens? You go out, you smoke. It changes your breathing pattern. You breathe deeper. You breathe slower. You feel more calm. Even as the nicotine is actually stimulating your blood flow and actually increasing your blood pressure, that's a whole other conversation. Right? But it's the idea, first step, breathe. Center yourself. So as you breathe, shoulders up, shoulders back, shoulders down, feel yourself connected to the ground. Feel yourself solid. Once you get that, you can begin to take your kids in a different place. You become solid. You now have a point. You can pivot and you can move them. If you're emotionally unstable, how are you going to move them when you're bouncing around like a crazy person? So you've got to be solid, then you can pivot. Okay? Number 2 is have a sense of humor about it all. Right? This is actually what I did with little Johnny when he said, I don't know what to say to you anymore. And he's so serious and so just, like I crossed a line. How dare you? Right? In my mind, I don't know if you guys have seen it. I'll put it in the show notes, but there's this picture of an otter and it has like a little stuffy and somebody's reaching for it and it says, no, you may not have my stuffy. Good day, sir. And then the next picture is like, I said good day. And that, like, I can't take a 4-year-old seriously when he's being so, I said good day, sir. Yes, you did, and you're adorable. So if you can keep your sense of humor, if you can keep a levity about it, it allows you room to move. It takes away the tension in you, and if you're not tense, then it's easier for your kids to relax with you. And then when they're in the moment of difficulty or challenge or frustration, they know how to relax. It's going to make it easier for you. If they know how to relax, it's going to make it easier for them, right? So that's why we want to do this. We want to practice that. First, take a deep breath. Second, we got to relax. Now, number 3, Be aware of what your kids are watching and what they're seeing. Start to notice not just your behavior, your spouse's behavior, your partner's behavior, but also their peers, their teachers, their coaches or mentors. What are they watching on screens? Right? With Miss Evie, she's watching stuff on YouTube, and we start to notice her behavior kind of moving sideways. And so we kind of, what are you watching on YouTube? We go back and look at the history, because it's on my phone or it's on mom's phone, so we can go back and scan the history. And there's this one YouTube show that she likes to watch, and it's some older girls, teenagers, 12, 13, and they're playing with dolls, and they have they're holding the dolls off camera, and you see them acting and doing the things, and they're telling stories. And one of the girls is a bully, and she's mean, and she's dismissive, and she's argumentative, and she's judgmental, and she's just a witch. Not in a good way. She's not a Wiccan. She's a witch, right? And so the thing there is, Evie starts to model that behavior, and she starts to treat her dolls mean, or her friends mean, or us mean. And we're like, hey, babe, that's not a good way to make friends. That's not a good way to have people be happy around you. And so rather than sit there and keep doing corrective action, we just got rid of the triggering event, and we just block that channel, or we just don't let her watch that particular thing on YouTube. We're like, oh, let's go watch this one instead. That one's not such a warm, big, happy. That one's not so friendly. We have ways to explain it to her that she goes, oh, okay, and she can go watch other stuff. But parents, you got to be monitoring who are your kids hanging out with, who are their heroes, who are their role models, who are they fraternizing with, socializing with. So it requires a little bit of oversight. And we're doing it in a way right now because she is 5. She shouldn't have unfettered access to everything she wants. There's a time and a place. But Jamie's almost 10, honey. And when you're almost 10, then you'll get to do things like him too. And so we have to put that context in sometimes, because she's like, but I can do it. Yeah, I know you've seen it, and I know you think you can, and I know you believe you can, but you're a little bit smaller than he is, and shorter than he is, and you're not as heavy as he is. So there's things that big brothers get to do that when you get to be a big sister like that, then you'll get that chance. If she ever gets to be that type of a big sister, we don't know. Okay, so make sure you're watching what they're doing, and who are they modeling, or who's their influencers. Yeah, who are they allowing to influence them? Who are you allowing? Number 4 is really understanding the developmental milestones and what is kind of the stages that kids move through. So as a quick overview, I actually have this as a part of my one of my training programs. But kids are born, and I'm not going to be politically correct exactly here, but basically kids are born and their brains are giant balls of goo with unfettered inputs and outputs, and they're just stimulus response monsters. They're selfish, they're interruptive, they're argumentative, they cry, they poop, they pee, they wake you up. They're just rude. No consideration, which is totally normal and healthy. But what they're doing is they're starting to go through various behaviors to make connections with you, and they're learning about their world, and the way we react, that begins to create certain circumstances for them. And then somewhere around 3 to 5 years old, they start to develop empathy, and part of that comes from hearing no, and they go, wait, what? No, that pain requires them to start noticing the world in a different way, to start shifting wavelengths, as it were. And then, so 3 to 5, they're still in what I call cat training mode. They're kind of selfish. They're kind of about themselves and their priorities. They don't really understand empathy, or don't really experience it. But then something kind of cool happens somewhere along that journey. So somewhere around 4.5, 5, 6, sometimes as late as 7, they start to develop empathy, and they start to care about other people, and they care about being a good boy, good girl. Their herd instinct kicks in. They want to be part of the group. You can use negative reinforcement, because being withheld, having love withheld, is painful for them. They want to get that connection. Timeout works. And that'll roll through about 9-ish is normal. And 9 is kind of the cap of that dog training mode. And then somewhere between 10 and 12, your kids begin to shift into what I call teenage brain. And they become like cats. And what motivates cats usually is food and shelter, food and safety. So same with teenagers. It's food and safety. That's what motivates them. Autonomy, freedom. And a lot of times the social group fractures, the peer group fractures. 4th grade, we all get along. 5th, 6th grade, things separate, and we're not cool anymore than we used to be, and I don't know what happened. And a lot of kids blame themselves, because if they're still running that child brain, that child mode, they don't know how to disassociate. So when they do something bad and get punishment, it's not, I did something wrong, it's I am wrong. Teenagers disassociate very quickly. They walk through the door, and you're like, hey, can you close the door? And they look at the door. Yeah. And then they walk off. Because you didn't ask them to close the door. You said, can you? Yeah, I'm capable. I just choose not to. Versus, hey, could you close the door? Or would you close the door? Oh, yeah, okay. A different request, right? Could you is, are you able? Would you is a request for action. So that teenage brain, they start to play inside there. Usually by about 13 to 15, they're starting to figure some things out, getting a little bit better sense of self-identity. This is also the age they can begin to commit to things and follow through on it. They can start to have their own priorities, become self-starters. Prior to that, they're going to need reminders, nudging, that kind of stuff. And they'll get caught up in the heat of the moment. They don't know how to delay their gratification that well up until about 13 to 15. And then usually by about 16, 17, they're more autonomous. They're able to start thinking, arguing for themselves. They really start to become a lot more self-sufficient. And then the goal is by 18, they're their own person. Now, unfortunately, a lot of our society, the way people are raised, that doesn't happen until like late 20s instead of late teens. And that's why the work I'm doing is to help change that. Duh. Right? We want to help change that relationship. But knowing kind of where your kids are developmentally, then you know what to expect from them, or you know what would be appropriate for them, and not giving them too much freedom. I was just watching one of the men's groups I'm in. Somebody posted a video of a child who was about 3.5, 4 years old, and the mom is just berating him and yelling at him, and he's crying, and she's yelling at him, "Shut up! Don't cry! Shut up! Don't do that! Shut up! Just shut up! Just shut up!" She's yelling at him, and she's got a belt in her hand because she's gonna, like, I don't know what she's gonna do with it, but she's got a belt, and the kid's terrified, and she's like, "Why were you rude to Grandma? Answer me." You can't tell someone to shut up and then tell them to answer you immediately afterward, because you're giving them crisscross messages. That little kid is just trying to please the authority figure, is just trying to get an answer. And yeah, 3.5-year-olds are rude. That's part of the deal. They don't recognize the world around them. They don't have a herd instinct yet. They don't have that I belong to a pack or a tribe exactly. They have an emotional attachment to a few people, yes, but they don't really get that idea that we're a tribe of people. So it's, Grandma comes to visit versus she lives with us. It'll be different treatment. And so for the mom to sit there and be screaming at the kid, dropping obscenities, threatening abuse, threatening being physically hit, the kid is already out of the moment. And all the kid's doing now is identifying themselves as, I am bad, not the way I treated Grandma was bad. Okay? And a quick sidebar, that kid needs more love and reassurance and connection. And I strongly suspect that mom needs more love and assurances and connection. I suspect she is in a very strong place of scarcity, and she's just fighting the entire world. So when her child becomes a burden or a problem or a conflict, the child becomes the enemy, and she has to control it. She has to suppress it. She has to dominate it, because that's what she's learning in her life in other areas. And it breaks my heart, really, to see somebody in that place. And because this was a video that was shared, I can obviously unpack the video for the people, the men in the men's group, but I can't get that information to that mom, which it frustrates me. And that's why I do the videos that I do, the YouTube channel, the podcast, the public speaking, all the different things I'm doing is to get this information out, because there are other ways, not positional authority, not you should be a good mom, you should do what, no, chuck that. Let's get to the reality of what do you need, what do they need, and how do you create the win-win? How do you both get to feel good? And that's really why I do all these things that I do, and why that's so important to me. Okay, so knowing where the stages are, you begin to know what's appropriate for your kids, for yourself. Life gets easier. Number 5 is pay attention to the amount of energy that gets you excited. What do they do that excites you? And feed that. Right? With Evie, oh, I love your being so helpful. Thank you. High five. That was awesome. You took that and threw it in the trash. That was amazing. Thank you. That is so helpful. If that's what I do when she takes the initiative, it's easier for her to take the initiative. Now, the consequence of that is sometimes I have to pull her back because she gets really excited, and sometimes she goes and does things that she's not quite ready for. But I'd rather have that Tigger I have to rein in a little bit versus the Eeyore who's scared to do anything and I got to poke her with a stick. Although Eeyore's not wrong, Tigger's not wrong. There's just different places to be. So pay attention and get excited about the stuff you want, and redirect or interrupt the stuff you don't want. Kids are yelling, I can't hear you when you yell. You sound like blah, 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 blah. So you be silly with it. Again, remember, be humorous, number 2. So you be silly with it, and then it gets the kids to laugh at you. They loosen up, and then it's not that big a deal to redirect them, right? So give you an easy example. Think about a little kid who is playing with scissors. And if you run up and you're like, oh my gosh, what are you doing with those scissors? You snatch those scissors away. What's that kid going to do? Oh, mother, father, thank you. You have saved me, for I was in danger. Mortal terror. I did not notice. Pray, thank you. Or are they going to be fixated on you took their thing and So, different strategy. You realize the kid's holding something dangerous. Come over quickly, of course. And then you just reach out and you get a hold of the thing and then you tickle them. Because energy can only be in one place. So they can hold on strong. And if you pull against, they'll resist. But if you hold on to secure it and then you tickle them, they start to laugh and they're like, oh, hey. The grip opens because they're going, oh, hey. While they're doing, you just take this away. And I'm going to continue to tickle, maybe put it in my back pocket, tickle with both hands, and then we're going to go do something else. So it's a way for me to get connection with my kids, interrupt the pattern, and not be like this. Does that make sense? Take a shot, right? So this is the idea. So what were those five tips for how to feed the behaviors you want? Number one, you got to be in a good place. Take a deep breath, center yourself. Number two, relax. Be playful, be curious, loosen yourself up. Number three, be aware of what your kids are watching and what is being modeled for them, not just by you, but by your spouse or partner, by friends, by role models, by YouTube, television, movies, coaches. Be aware of what people are doing and what behaviors they're throwing out. Number four, understand the developmental milestones. Know where your kids are in their process. And then number five, feed the energy that you want. Give extra energy in the behaviors you do want, and then redirect or interrupt the behaviors you do not want. Okay? So that right there is our tips for the day, and I hope that was very helpful for you to continue to empower your kids to speak up and own their voice and learn how to create their own emotional safety. And it begins with you creating your emotional safety and helping them to experience it, and you speaking up and owning your own voice as well. You have a right to feeling happy, healthy, safe, wealthy, and wise. Thank you for joining me today. And make sure you continue to feed the behavior you want in your children. Feed the behavior you want in yourself. It's okay to extend that hand 90 degrees above, bend the elbow, and pat yourself on the back and say, good job, me. You say, that's right, me, high five, me. Yes, you go, you. That's right. You could be your own best friend. I won't judge you for it. Anybody else who does, they need to probably be a better friend to themselves too, don't they? That's it, ladies and gentlemen. I have been Jeremy, the Kung Fu Guy. This has been the Parenting Program Podcast Show. And it's been my pleasure to have you join me. You guys make it an outstanding day. And I will see you when I see you. Bye.